we're always going to be going through some period of malevolence where we're going to be dealing with some like dark situations, some confrontations in some way of shape or form. And but if you stay tapped in to your heart, to your third eye, to your inner self, to everything that your higher self is speaking of, if you listen to those things, you will be okay. And that everything that you're going through is prepping you for transformation. I think this part is really important. No one knows you like you know you. So you have healers and facilitators like me and yourself that are here to guide you, but this is your responsibility and this is your journey. And I'm saying that in an empowering way. Like, you're in control. Don't give that power to anyone else.
Welcome to the Mindful Rebel podcast, the podcast where mindfulness and leadership intersect. In this episode, I had the pleasure of chatting with Martell Akade, also known as Dr. Nanzi. Martell is an astrologer, psilocybin facilitator, life coach, and founder of Ananzi's Labyrinth. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Martell has always had an open ear for those in need of emotional support. From childhood, his curious mind and love for one-on-one conversations have allowed him to connect intimately with people of all walks of life. Today, Martell combines his innate communication skills with his passion and knowledge of astrology to give others clarity and honest insight into their multidimensional identity. Ananzi's Labyrinth is an astrology-based platform that helps individuals learn about their unique idiosyncrasies, inclinations, and motivations behind their actions. Martell hopes that each reading serves his community with new and profound perspective and a roadmap of sorts to realizing your soul's highest potential. All right, everyone, welcome to this episode of the Mindful Rebel podcast. My name is Sean, and of course, I'm excited to be here on this next episode. The podcast is back, and I've just been in a good place. And so these conversations are sort of a bit of that heart work and connecting with folks in the community. So in this episode, we have good brother Martell. Listen, thank you for taking the time out to chat with me. Been following your work for some time. I'm still sort of have that energy resonating from a reading that you did for me a couple of years ago. So felt like it just would be appropriate for us to take some time to connect and chat a bit.
Yes, man, that's love. I really appreciate that. I'm like, this from the very beginning of us meeting. Like, you know, it's been real honored working with you because it's like you're a healer too, and it's like healers need healing. So like to have you like come to me, I was just like, oh man, this is, you know, I'm doing something right here. You know, it affirmed a lot for me. Thank you, man.
Yeah, of course, man. And I'm like, I look at that too. I like following your work. I'm like, I know like healers, we typically are very particular about who we share space with because we're a little bit tapped in, and I was just like, nah, let me, brother. So thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So the best place I like to really start our conversations, particularly for the listeners, is maybe to get a foundation of who you are and the work that you do. And so, you know, as you mentioned, you know, healers need healers. You're in this space, you know, with the work that you do around astrology, as a facilitator, life coach. Talk to me about like your journey. What brought you to the work that you are currently doing?
For me, like, I didn't start studying astrology till I was around like, I say 18 or 19. I'm 34 now. But like when I think about it, I've always it's like a personality thing. I just remember being in like junior high school and like somebody breaking up with their girl and they're just like, oh my God. And like I was that person who was like, man, that's crazy. And they would always like I would have a lot of people just like in my circle always come to me in private a lot of the time just to like talk. I remember this one particular memory, a little intense, but it was a friend of mine, this brother named Elliot. He was like always a real tough dude. He was a boxer, and mind you, we're like 12, 13. So for this dude to be boxing at that time is like, whoa, it was a big deal.
Right.
And he was just he was always like a guy like, yo, you don't mess with Elliot. And I just remember us walking one time and he's just like almost broke down telling me how he saw his uncle get killed in front of him. And it was like, it just, even at the time, I was like, wow, this guy that has this tough exterior is exposing himself to me because we're close friends. We go to school together. So that's always been a part of like my journey, with people. So all throughout high school. So then when like around 18, I think I just started getting to the regular basics of astrology. Oh, what's your sun sign? And I was learning a lot about myself. I'm a Libra. And I did that for a while. I was with a couple of friends. We were studying together, and this was like an interesting, like fated day where I went to go visit my uncle, who he's been like such a pivotal man in my life. Like he actually introduced me to all things metaphysical and spiritual,
Wow.
astrology, the Orisha, martial arts, meditation. I'd be like, I might come home from a party and I didn't want to go home. I go to his house, crash, and then he wakes me up like, all right, come on, we're doing some yoga. I'm just like, oh man, I'm hungover. It's like, come on, bro, we're doing this. And this really, really positive person to have in my life. So I went to his house and he was getting a Ifa reading. And I had a couple of friends with me, and we're like, yo, what's going on here? What is this? And we were kind of like eavesdropping on the reading a little bit. And then afterwards, we just had all these questions for the Babalao. And he's just like, okay, explaining the religion a bit. And then one of my other friends was like, Baba, what's your sign? And he's like, oh, I'm a Scorpio. And then he was just like, before y'all get into your stuff about Scorpios, I know our reputation, understand there's more to your horoscope than just your sun sign. So he starts breaking down natal charts, and my jaw dropped. I was like, there's more to this? I thought you were just a Libra. That's it, right? So he's like, nah, your moon could be here, your Mars could be there, yada yada. He said, look up your time, and you can find, if you know the time of birth, you can look up your natal chart. So I did that, and the accuracy hit me right away. I was like, oh, I'm sold. And from there, I just never stopped. I started memorizing people's charts. I'll be around my friends. I'm like, oh, that's your Mercury and Cancer right there. Like, I can really pick out. It was a way for me to like, not only analyze people, but really understand my friends and loved ones on a more intimate level. It's like, oh, okay, I can see why you're inclined to do this thing, or you communicate in this way. So maybe because I know this, I can approach you like that, or I can approach this person like this because they have a moon in Taurus. And it was like that for a while. And then, but most people knew me as a musician. So this was kind of like in the closet. I was like low key with it. Like close friends knew I was an astrologer, but for years people were like, oh, that's Martell. He's a bass player. He plays for this band. He plays for that band. And I was with a friend of mine who's a tarot reader, and I was casually, I just mentioned something about her chart, like, oh, you got Mona Leo, that's why, blah blah. And she's like, oh, you know all this stuff about me that's out of random. I was like, you're my homegirl, like, of course I know. And she's like, you should give readings. I was like, me? Nah, I'm not gonna give no readings. And like, you go into the imposter syndrome, or I don't know enough, and all these things. And with a little convincing, she got me to like do one at one of her events, and the floodgates just opened after that. People like started. First, it was like, wait, don't you play bass? And then it's like, but now we're seeing you in this different area. And then the two started to like kind of blend. And from there, it's been a snowball effect to this very moment.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack there. One, it's always great meeting folks that like, I know how like social media, Instagram have sort of like popularized things, and like, you see the people, I'm like, yeah, y'all clearly just picked this up because it's visible now. But like, I felt that energy from you.
Right.
You've been in this for, this is
right
coming from like a deeply rooted space. So I appreciate that. I want to go back to, it was something very interesting. You mentioned that like your uncle was your entry point into this, right? And I think I find it fascinating because quite often, like, we have like we typically find like this entry point through like women, through like our mother, through like our aunts, our grandmas. And
right.
It's interesting that your uncle brought you in. Has that shaped sort of your perspective on the work?
Absolutely. Just seeing it, just because like, and it's not right or wrong, but I'm sure you see it, and even our female counterparts see it, where is this kind of cheesy marketed version of spirituality that's not like the real thing. So we just think it's like flowers and, you know, just a bunch of more, lack of a better word, like more pretentious things. Because it's serious. You know this. People that are really into it really know like the amount of work that goes into it, whether it's shadow work or just really looking deep within yourself, that goes beyond the more aesthetically pleasing part. So for me to see it from the lens of another man, I remember to this day I still do, but I looked up to him so much growing up because he was a very masculine man, but he just had that right ratio, because it's like we all have a bit of masculine and feminine in us. So seeing it embodied in a guy that was one, he's like a martial artist and black belt, had a bunch of championships, competed. So like really a man's man in that way, but just saying, well, you can use these tools to better understand yourself. It was his approach was very, not all the way practical, but I immediately saw the practical use of it. It's like, oh, this is a means to understand myself, to develop myself in a better way, to understand the context into which you live personally. You know, you have certain transits that are going on that are affecting your chart. So to be able to, at certain pivotal points in my life, to go, oh, this is happening because I'm going through my Saturn return. This isn't just life happening to me. I can see this from this practical point that's really helping me along the way. Like I just remember my Saturn return, which for those who are listening, that's when it happens. Every planet has a return. Our solar return is when the Earth makes a full rotation around the sun, but each planet can do the same, right? So Saturn takes 27 years, and since Saturn is the planet that deals with like restriction, life lessons, how we need to discipline ourselves, things of that nature. When it returns at that 27-year mark, it intensifies, and it really like intensifies the lessons which we've been learning all our life. It's almost like studying, and then now you have a final exam. And it was so much going on through that time, man. My kids were already born, but I was going through a lot of transitions. Divorce, moving, I had a fire, all these crazy things were happening. But to be able to have a context to go, oh, this is why it's happening. It's God don't hate me. It's not some force that is being mean or malevolent for no reason. This is here to transform me. And just having that information while going through that helped me so much. So he was the introduction to that, of like, well, you can use these things to understand yourself. There are higher forces out there that you could commune with to help you along the way. You don't have to go along. You don't have to go through this by yourself, you know? So he really embodied that for me in a way that, though he was the introduction, I did have women in my life, including my mother, who wasn't like not necessarily like spiritual, how most people see a person, but just a very intuitive woman, who showed me in other ways that, like, I got to see later. Like, I'm like, whoa, my mother's a really like powerful person. Seeing her journey of things, but yeah, he was like I don't know if I would have that lens if it wasn't for him. Maybe in some capacity, but the level that I do, where I could appreciate all the people in my life that had this spiritual influence, it was definitely like very crucial.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And every time I hear you talk, like even when I like check out your Instagram page and your posts and things, like I'm like learning, because I'm at a moment of transparency. I know a lot about a lot of spiritual things. Astrology is probably the area that I know the least about, at least outside of like the surface level stuff, right? And so, and I know a lot of people that are like that, where they're like, cool, I know my sign, but like that's the extent. And then, I know people mention other aspects like your moon sign, your sun, all these other aspects. So for the people that are listening that might want to dive a little deeper, could you share maybe a little bit more about like the application of astrology and maybe how you use it? Maybe a little bit of a primer on it as sort of a spiritual practice.
Okay, no problem. Let's see. how I like to describe your natal chart is a snapshot of everything that was going on in the universe at the moment you were born, and how there's this like microcosmic, macrocosmic relationship with everything that was happening and how it's embodied in you. And just through deciphering the symbolism of these planets and what signs they're in as a means to understanding yourself, it just for me it builds a strong awareness of like the little nuances of who you are. So like, let's say for instance I have an Aries moon, and this is dealing with like the emotional aspect of our being, how we respond to things, what drives us emotionally, again, like emotional triggers, all these things. So me knowing that about myself, it helps me like, I'll give you a perfect example. Like, as an Aries moon, I hate slow traffic. I can't stand it. It drives me crazy. I will go, like, my kids know when we're driving is like, or like, I will plan ahead just not to experience slow traffic. I'm like, we got to get up extra early because I want to be on the road at this time so I can cruise. I'm in my car driving, as opposed to like being stuck in traffic where I'm just like, oh my God, move, move, move. And even when I'm stuck in those moments, I'm like, you need to calm down. It's not that serious, because that Aries moon might want to be more impulsive, or, just act in a way that's not conducive to being stuck in bumper to bumper traffic. So me being aware of that is like, I laugh at myself sometimes when I get annoyed. I'm just like, yo, come on, move it. Because it's like, all right, Aries moon, it's not that deep. Traffic's going to move in 10 minutes. What's the point of like, getting wrapped up in this moment, So little things like that to bigger things in regards to like I said before, if you're going through a serious transit, understanding, oh, there's a lesson here. There's something to be taught in this inconvenient moment that I really need to look at, and it helps me pull back away from myself and like have this like external view and saying like, oh, like this is what I need to learn. This is a teachable lesson right here. So let me relax. Let me see it for what it is and see what gem I could get out of it. That I'm human, doesn't happen every single time. Sometimes you get consumed, you're just like, oh my God, but I've studied it for so long that the awareness is pretty like ingrained in me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. As I'm listening, I'm like, I appreciate even your perspective of like, hey, it gives you a reference point to sort of step outside of yourself to observe, right? To observe and even make a different choice, right? A more intentional choice, because you understand sort of the context to what's happening to you and what's happening in the world around you, sort of in that way. So thank you for sharing and kind of shaping it from that perspective. Because I don't think I've heard it articulated that way before.
Okay, yeah, and I feel like it also builds compassion for yourself, because you understand you're a human and that this is like your own personal journey. Things are going to happen, like times where I'm tough on myself is like, well, this is what the lesson is for. It's going to keep reoccurring, especially for longer transits, so give yourself the space for trial and error. As long as you understand the overall arching lesson, like there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be times where you're blindsided, and understand that that's all part of your journey of development too,
Yeah, I'm sitting here and I say this, my listeners will probably like, damn man, you're a broken record. But I say this every time I talk to or in conversation with a podcast guest, they always share something relevant to like what like I'm working through. And that was, as you were sharing that, I was like, received, like, so.
Yes. We need it, man.
Yeah. I mean, so, you have such an interesting background. There's so many things I want to ask you about, but I know that you do some psilocybin sort of facilitation as well. Like, does that pair with the work that you do in astrology? Is that something separate, and can you talk a little bit about what does it mean to facilitate that use of plant medicine in that way?
Yes, I definitely incorporate the two. I have nature hikes that I do with clients where already have like their natal chart prepared, and I come in with a certain intention studying them. So it's like even beforehand, we have a little questionnaire. We have a little moment where we sit, drink some like adaptogen tea, just as a way to get acclimated into each other. This might be a perfect stranger, one to be comfortable with me, and just speak intention into the hike. And because I know what psilocybin has done for me, it has been like a great like teacher in regards to like delving deep inside myself. So I figured incorporating these services, like mixing these two, is like the perfect pair for me. Is like because I get to like fine tune and really look inside of this person. I'm also dosing with them, so that it's not like I'm just like a complete stranger to what's going on, or like I'm there with them. And I even in my own practices, I try to go out into the as far deep into the deep end as possible. So while they're microdosing, it's like, all right, I've been here before. I've been to this level of it. I could walk you through if there's some hard times. Um, yeah, but it's been, man, I I love this work. I love this work. I really enjoy doing it, especially in the summer. Um, I was doing it I started last fall during Scorpio season. I felt like that would be a great time to start because it's Scorpio season naturally is like very transformative,
Mm,
and is also the like precursor to the winter, which is where the months where we start to get depressed.
mm.
You know, is when we start to really, I try not to use the word depressed too loosely. Sometimes it's actual depression. Sometimes I feel like it's just a process of transformation where you're looking at yourself and you're going, this is what I need to work on. And I think that little dark side of you that is like not satisfied with what you are at this current moment is the catalyst to transform yourself. So having a certain like context to say, all right, well, this is what I'm working on. This is what's happening transit wise. That is like I'm sorry, my kids are in the background
No,
driving me
you
crazy.
fine. You fine.
Can you hear them? You
No,
could?
no.
Okay, as long as they on their tablets and stuff. So forgive me if you hear a little something. But yeah, uh, yeah. To again have a context. So why am I going through these particular things? Like I had a couple of sessions that were really intense, where these people really needed like to look at something in particular. Like one person was going through a divorce, another person was going through a really serious death, and they were just looking for context and closure, and to be able to like say, well, I know you're about to go into this dark space, so while you're going into this dark space, this is what you should look at. These are the things that are come up in your transit. I'm picking a random transit. Pluto might be in your seventh house or third house or whatever, and it's squaring X, Y, and Z, and this is what you're feeling right now. This transit's going to be going on as you're going through this transformative process. So as opposed to get lost in it, now you could go, oh, this is what he kind of, lack of a better word, predicted or kind of forewarned me about. And the psilocybin really helps you even look deeper into it, feel it emotionally, physiologically, on a deeper level that kind of stays with you. I was blessed to be able to um, get back in touch with some of these clients, and they'd be like, man, I went through this, and that. And I remembered when you said this might happen. Maybe this person might come back into my life or whatever. And I was able to like remember something you said or remember something you mentioned about a transit and how this might reflect that. And I was able to make the right decision. Or even more so, I made the wrong decision, and then it reminded me of the thing that you mentioned. And I'm like, okay, I won't do that again. So now reaffirmed and solidified them saying, setting a certain boundary for themselves or being open to something. It's like it could go so many ways. It's unique to the is unique to the client and their natal chart and our experience during the hike. Also, particularly in that fall season, seeing nature reflect what we're going to be going through or what we are going through. So it's like you're seeing plants dying, you're seeing the wood decay and go into the earth. That is a very corresponding process to what we're going through. You know, we're about to die. There's a part of us that's about to die right now. So that when we and I could go. Forgive me, I'm an air sign. I go on tangents.
No, you're good. You're
But
good.
like, like, like it reminds me of it's a few stories I could go into, but one I really like to go into is the comedic story of Asar, Set, and Haru, and how this for a short synopsis. You know, you got the father archetype of Asar, who is like the progenitor and the creator of tradition and antiquity and the foundations of a civilization. But as all structures will do, they become antiquated. So he dies. His evil brother, Set, which represents sunset, the sun going down, he kills his brother and takes over. You see the same story played in The Lion King, like almost verbatim, where it's like the evil darkness takes over, and what we understand the structure of tradition to be dies, but he has a son, and this son is Haru, and this son has to fight for supremacy so that progress can shine. So during their battle, Haru and Set's battle, Haru gets his eye taken out and he descends into the underworld to see his father, and his father gives him his third eye, and he resurrects and defeats Set, which ends up being darkness. So this represents the process into which we transform as well, where we come to the end of our understanding of things. And I think like the fall time, Scorpio season, is this moment where we reach to understand maybe you've accomplished all these things within your business, your podcast, all these things that you're doing. And it's like, there's a next level. You don't know how you're going to get there. You don't know what it's going to look like. You just know that you're not reaching your highest potential. And this is where we nitpick and we're like, I can do this better and this, and you get depressed about it. And then we go into darkness, just as these plants that are decaying are going into darkness. But what happens eventually? It goes into darkness, it decays. What happens in spring? We rise back up. So hopefully in this process of nitpicking, we didn't get lost in the darkness. We came back up, we resurrected. Now we have these new things that we've been working on. It could be that we went to the gym, start working out. Could be that, maybe a new facet of your business that you always wanted to start it and expand on has come up and rose. So I really love doing it during that time, and then seeing people come out of their darkness now and seeing the things that they worked through, and now they're a whole new person. So the nature walk definitely did that. Now it being summertime, seeing a different facet of it. I just had a session last week where because it's Cancer season, it's very fertile and abundant. So I'm seeing people apply this fertile energy in a way that you don't necessarily see in the other seasons. So it's just like this constant, again, microcosmic, macrocosmic reflection of like what I am, what I'm going through, how it's reflected in nature, how we can experience this in real time, and how we can experience it by me analyzing your natal chart.
Mm. Yeah, you was cooking because I'm just as you're talking, this idea of like transition and transformation just kept emerging, and this is what I would ask you, like as you work with folks through these guided experiences, through folks that come and get their charts read, through your life coaching, like what tips could you share maybe around people moving through transition. Because I think that there's so much happening right now where, you know, like there's some large social transitions happening, and then it's stuff happening on our individual level. I feel like there's just so much, there's just the energy of transition flowing right now that I don't know, feels a bit stronger than it usually does. But any tips for people that are maybe moving or noticing or aware of this energy of transition that's happening right now?
Okay. I would say first thing, especially as this like a form of consolation, is just like you will be okay. You know, you're going through these things for a reason. I was having a conversation yesterday where, and it's not to minimize anybody's experiences, because you know we're all going through something unique to the period of time we're in. But I've been it's rare that I get addicted to like a series, but I've been watching this show on Peacock called Vikings. And you know, part of it is fictional, of course, but they're talking about the area like where the Vikings started to expand westward into like Western Europe. And like I just reflected on like one, like looking at the transits of that time, like seeing where Pluto was, seeing where Neptune is, where it was, and all that. And like going, man, I'm not going through that. Just imagine the visual of like as you're sitting here, you just see a bunch of horses coming from the distance, and somebody about to take your shit, or you got to prepare for battle. It's not, we're preparing for battle in different ways, but saying that to say that there's always a time, we're always going to be going through some period of malevolence where we're going to be dealing with some like dark situations, some confrontations in some way of shape or form. And but if you stay tapped in to your heart, to your third eye, to your inner self, to everything that your higher self is speaking of, if you listen to those things, you will be okay. And that everything that you're going through is prepping you for transformation. That and that I think this part is really important. No one knows you like you know you. So you have healers and facilitators like me and yourself that are here to guide you, but this is your responsibility and this is your journey. And I'm saying that in an empowering way. Like you're in control. Don't give that power to anyone else. Cause I think both sides there's accountability. We have people that acquiesce their inherent power, but then you also got so-called healers that will take advantage of that. And I always try to build awareness of that. I'm here for you. I'm here to hold space for you. I'm here to talk you through with whatever you need to talk through. We all need that. I need that sometimes, you know. But at the end of the day, the steps that need to be taken, only you can lift your foot up and make that first step. And I encourage people to take that on, to say like, okay, it is time for me to walk into my power, to say that this is what this is how I could be in control of my destiny, in control of the things that are that the challenges are coming my way, and that I'm here to overcome them. I wasn't put on this planet to lose. I wasn't put on this planet to be overcome by these dark obstacles that might come in our way. I always say that the obstacle is proof of your healing, of you getting to that other side. There wouldn't be a blockage if there wasn't something for you to get past. It's there for a reason. It's like playing a sport. Like if you're playing basketball, nobody would be being oppositional to you if they didn't know that you had the potential to make that jump shot or beat them in some kind of way. So your obstacle is that same thing. It's like there's something on the other side. If it wasn't there, there would be no opposition. The opposition wouldn't even be like holding you back. So to see it from that standpoint, I think is important, because sometimes we forget. Sometimes, you know, how I view depression is like when you're so consumed by that darkness that you just think that this is reality. This is what it is. There's no other side to it. This is, you were just meant to lose. And I know I've been there. I've battled depression for many, many years. But when I was able to kind of pull myself and like, again, like have that almost like an aerial view or external view of myself and go, no, you can go this way, you could go that way. It's something to go around. It's not your whole existence. You know, we need that. So yeah, just knowing that you got this and that there are people that can help you, you know, whether it be people in your family, people that are friends you could talk to, healers, that will do everything in their power to help you understand your power. That's really what it's about.
Mm. Yeah, I'm just sitting here like, yes. Yes. There was so much that you were saying that I think has been at the forefront of my mind recently in a lot of different spaces. Especially like this idea of sort of helping people return back to their own personal power, right? Like the idea that quite often in our space and the work that we do, like it's really not about us having the answers. It's just about us helping create the space for you to figure out the answers on your own. And
yes,
you know,
yes.
maybe there's some suggestive questions, there's some self-inquiry, there's some reflection, there's modalities we can share with you. But in reality, it's like, cool, now you got to take the step. And I like that right. Sort of analogy around like, you know, you can give somebody all the things, but it's up to them to propel themselves with that first step, right? That they're the ones sort of taking that step. And then even what you shared about, and I felt like you was sort of like looking right at, speaking to me around running into those obstacles and realizing that if there's an obstacle there, it's because it's something on the other side. That one kind of hit. That one kind of hit. So I want to say thank you for sharing that and putting that into the space.
Of course, brother. Of course.
One of the things I want to ask, you know, as you mentioned, talking about sort of in your exploration in spaces with the work that you do, sort of using psilocybin in that way. Any tips? Because I feel like this is a running theme in the last couple of episodes of like, social media is a good thing to a degree, and then the negative side of it is everyone has. The great thing is that people have access and they see a lot more things, right? But the other thing is like in that, how are people safely working with some of the things that they're sort of picking up? And so, you know, I know more and more people are working with psilocybin in different ways or using it. And I've heard a lot more conversations around people's like, yeah, nah, I tried it one time and it wasn't the thing for me. But as somebody who's used it before, understanding sort of like what that opens up and sort of what sort of connections can come from that. Any tips for like someone who might be interested in exploring it or, like some safe entry points or thoughts around people interested in exploring it?
Let's see. One, knowing that it's going to be different from you. You can't compare it too much to other people's. There'll be certain similarities because, you know, we're all using the same medicine, but I would say take your time. If you can, have somebody to be there with you. If you get a facilitator, even better. But I know not everybody can afford that or they don't know where to go for that. But it maybe take it in small, like on a practical level, maybe take it in small doses. See how microdosing feels, and then work your way up. Me, again, I'm Aries moon, so I jump into the deep end with stuff. So I've been on this journey of psilocybin really since I was a kid. I think the first time I took it was like 15 or 16. And though it was recreational, really quick I found out, no, it's not. Really quick I found out, no, there's something here. There's something here for me to look at. And it made me, I was already always like an introspective kid, but it really made me like look at myself even more. And I dare say is one of the reasons why I'm even here now as a healer. Just it strengthened my muscle of being able to listen to myself. which is really what's going on in the process. We spend so much time ignoring our inner self, our higher self, our like what things that our third eye is speaking about, you know, like, and, you know, because what we want to say, the powers that be, the world, however we want to look at it, is always telling us to ignore who we are, you know, from elementary school. You know, you're not taught to how to tap into who you are. And in my experience of seeing people have a negative reaction to it, because I even seen it as a kid, it was like, oh, there's something you don't want to look at. It's something you've been running from a long time that is coming up, and it's hitting you like a tsunami, as opposed to like you've been looking at this gradually, and then it's like, oh, okay, let me cut the shit and really like delve into this. Right, you know what I mean? But like it can, yeah, it can, if you've been running away from it, it's a very polarizing effect. So it's like the degree into which you've been ignoring it is going to be the degree to which it hits you. So if you've been running from something, it's going to show. So if there is some level of discomfort, I would suggest finding a facilitator. Maybe if you have a friend that's been doing this, maybe, you know, in some instances, I know facilitators that don't dose. I know ones that do. Me personally, I like doing it so that I'm like at the frequency with you, you know, and being experienced is like, you see, well, I'm okay. And I'm able to like, again, I think it's like you're tapped in. It's like, oh, okay, boom, I'm here with you. I'm not somebody that is objectively like so sober and just like, oh, I don't know what you're going through. Like, you know, what's going on? It's like, no, I'm here. What's up? Oh, this is the thoughts. All right, come on, let's sit and talk about this. I do suggest that, but again, if you don't have the means or the access, maybe even start with finding other modalities that will help you look into these things, maybe without the medicine first. You know, sit with a Reiki healer, and if they're breaking down certain aspects of your body and asking you questions about that are rooted in childhood, that are rooted in patterns in relationships or whatever, is like having it in that way first, and then as you're like almost, you know, I'll say almost, it's almost like training wheels of this person's walking you along the way in that regard, then going, okay, now that I've already been looking at this, let me take a step further and take this medicine, maybe not a lot, and just like, okay, now I can look at it even deeper, and even then still have somebody with you if you need it. But something that I tell people, I even tell my children, is that certain aspect to healing is you're on your own. That sounds a little scary, but you got to learn that, like, whether it be when you're sleeping at night or when you're just in a moment by yourself, you're in this by yourself, and you need to have the comfort of being able to sit with yourself. Somebody can't hold your hand all the time. There's moments where we need it. We all need it. I need it. You need it. But there are moments where you have to be by yourself. And I think that's the other aspect to this healing that people are a little scared of. That is like, we spend so much time distracting ourselves from ourselves, whether it be being on our phone, being on Instagram, hanging around friends constantly, partying, all these things that distract us from, you know, that little voice that's telling us certain things about ourselves. So, honestly, first step, learn to be by yourself. Have a moment throughout the day where you're consciously by yourself. Whether it be meditation, whether it just be sitting in your thoughts. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and maybe I'm able to do this because I'm a healer and I've been acclimated in this for a long time, but I could sit in silence for hours. I could wake up, pray at my shrines, sit in my thoughts, wash my dishes, clean my house, utter silence, no music, no nothing. Like, I sometimes I can't even remember if I'm talking out loud to myself or it's my thought, unless like I'm just like feeling my mouth moving. Sometimes I do both. Sometimes I'm talking to myself like verbally. Sometimes I'm in my head. Sometimes I'm meditating on a conversation I need to have, but I'm by myself. And there are times, even for me, it gets uncomfortable because, you know, as humans, we're social. So we need to interact with people. But having that time to yourself is crucial. And I think if you already have built that muscle up, when you feel it in this intense way through plant medicine, even though it might still be intense, it's going to be familiar to you. So those are some tips I would give.
You kind of tapped into another question, because the question I like to ask other healers is like, what does healing mean to them? And you know, you talked about something that I think I've been sitting with a lot more in the last couple of months of this idea that sort of like we got to sit with some parts of our healing journey is with ourselves, right? We can tap into all the different modalities. We can do all the things. We can, you know, whatever your choice of healing is. If it's sound, you buying all the bowls. If it's Reiki, you're doing all the things. Whatever it is that you do. But part of it is just us coming home to ourselves and just sitting with ourselves. And that's been something like that's been sort of resonating with me a little bit more. Even when you mentioned like getting up in the mornings, and like it's sometimes that like, it's not even for me about meditating. It's just it's just being in silence, like being home in silence, doing things like whether I'm cleaning up, to your point, playing with the dog, reading, whatever, but just creating that real intentional sort of silent space just to notice and be a little bit more comfortable with myself.
Yeah. It's very crucial because I feel like as healers, like we're shining a light on the darkness. Just like, I don't know, like if you were to, no, I'm from the hood, so like when you turn on the lights and all the roaches scatter, you know. So it's like when you shine the light, the dark, like those things that you don't want to see, they're like, oh, I'm trying to run back to not being seen. So I feel like silence does that. And yeah, like silence does that, but you got to be able to look at it and do it within the comfort of solitude, because if you don't, they're going to come out in other ways later. So you might have a healer that says, oh, okay, I'm looking at this aspect of your chart, or I'm doing Reiki or whatever modality, and I see this dark area. Have you taken a look at it? You still got to take a look at it. I can spot it for you, but and I can spot it in that moment, and hopefully I build awareness with you. But like I say, I don't know you like you know you. You walk within your body 24 hours a day. You sleep in your body, take a shower, everything. You're by yourself, with yourself all the time. So though we might, as a healer, we might have this unique perspective, which you need sometimes. Again, you know you like nobody else, and you it's that way for a reason. So take the time out to do so.
One of the questions I love to ask is, you know, as you've sort of grown in your space as a healer and in your own spiritual practice, are there any resources, maybe it's like a book or anything in general that you would suggest or recommend to someone that maybe has been real transformational or beneficial for you in your on your journey?
Books.
Anything.
Yes. This. I mean, there's a bunch of places I could go. I can know some. I know some pivotal books. I don't know if it's gonna resonate with everybody, but just for me personally, one book that I read a few years ago was Way of the Superior Man. That really helped me a lot. I read it during my Saturn return, and it just helped me just in developing my divine masculine. I was already on that journey, but just again, this you know, somebody with some outside knowledge that is like helping me take things in perspective, especially because Saturn in our chart represents the aspect of father and paternal energy and structure and things like that. So be able to have a book like that helped me. Another book that just helped me in my journey as a Black man is a book I recommend to a lot of people of color. It's called It's a long title, forgive me. The United Independent Compensatory Code by Neely Fuller. It has helped me understand like racism in a very logical way, in a very practical way, and has helped me like in navigating the world as a non-white person in a way that's very constructive, because sometimes we're encouraged to just be fueled by anger or fueled purely by emotion. Emotion has its place and it has its validity, but to also be able to like one, see patterns and to safely navigate those patterns in a way that brings the most constructive outcome. So those are two books. Resources, for other resources, honestly, psilocybin, nature speaks to me in such a deep way. Like I make it a thing on a weekly, probably like twice a week, I'm in nature, I'm hiking. Even when it's cold out, I'll go out and just be in nature. You know, I'm blessed to have access to like a couple of parks in my I live in Jersey right now. But I'm from Brooklyn, so whether I'm in Brooklyn or whether I'm in somewhere in New York or somewhere in Jersey, being having access to nature, communicating with nature as a Orisha, understanding like the magic of nature, the power of nature, the fact that it's like a force that has been around for antiquity, like for as long as humans been here, nature's been here before that. So there is like inherent wisdom that we could gather from nature. Um, Praying every morning to my shrines, and just having something beyond you that is the proverbial mother and father, like literally and figuratively. Like when I pray to my Orisha, whether it be I wake up and I pray to my Batala shrine, and this is like the father archetype of in Isheshe and Ifa, and knowing what that means. Like I'll get into two Orisha in particular that I work with. The paternal Orisha of Obatala is just like this forgiving father that's always like welcoming you with open arms to say, if I made a mistake, if I'm lost, is like having you have your actual parents that can help you if you're blessed to have a good relationship with them, but also having this bigger father, this bigger mother to embrace you in this way and say everything's gonna be okay. When you're lost, to guide you. I say that's the biggest resource. Books are cool, encourage reading. But I dare say that even when we're tapping into books, we're tapping into we're tapping into people's insight to some higher source. When I gather wisdom from books, I can tell, especially when it's really valuable information, whether the person is conscious of it or not, they're tapping into something higher. They're tapping into nature and their experience with it, and what they pulled from it. So books are cool because it gives us this unique perspective to how, whether it be our peers or our elders, have tapped into source. It's also cool to have that access to source ourselves. Getting into the Orisha of Oshun, just being that maternal energy where it's like, yeah, mama, I can literally talk to you when I feel lost in regards to things that are feminine that I'm trying to understand, whether it be the flow of money, whether it be, you know, because like water and currency, like that's where we get the concept of currency from. Show me the way of help me understand the feminine, help me understand how money works, how wealth works, because it's not just about, oh, I do something and you give me money for it. Like wealth is so much deeper than that. So be like sitting at a river. I have certain rivers that I go to. I pray, I sit, I talk, I wait for the wisdom to come, and her telling me things, you know. So being able to tap in that way as well is, I would say, and you don't only have to be an Olarisha. Everybody has access to this. Everybody has an inherent access to it. So those are some things I would share in regards to like just knowledge and wisdom that has helped me along the way to this very moment.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, brother. That means a lot. A lot of things you were saying. One, the books I'm gonna go check out. Two, I need to get out to some nature. And water is sort of, that's the element that resonates probably the most with me. And I realized probably in the last couple months, I haven't sufficiently sat or been at or near some sort of body of water for some substantial amount of time. So I feel like I got some homework for this week to do. So thank you for that reminder.
Yes, we all do. No problem, bro.
So as we start to, yeah, of course, man. As we start to wrap up, what I want to do is create some space for you to share with the listeners how they can get in touch with you. I'll talk a little bit about some of your offerings, and just for everybody that's listening or watching, everything that Martell shares will be in the description of the podcast. If you click down at the bottom, you'll be able to click on any of the links. But yeah, talk a little bit about how folks can tap into your offerings and modalities.
Oh, for sure. They can go to my website, www.anansislabyrinth.com. All my services are there. The nature walks, just regular natal chart readings. I provide natal chart readings, synastry readings. If you're like, any kind of relationship, really. Some people use it for romantically. I've had clients that use it for, when a child is born, they want to know the chemistry that they're going to have with their child, what they need to look at, looking at children's charts, Saturn return charts when you're at that pivotal, certain pivotal transits that we're all going to be going through, looking at current transits for people. So anybody who's looking just for astrology readings in any regard, astrocartography if you're looking to travel. Yeah, you go on my site for that. You could book nature walks. Right now, I'm doing it mostly on the East Coast. So like, if you're in New York, if you're in New Jersey, if you're in Pennsylvania, even the DMV, I'm willing to travel to provide that service for people. I provide everything. I provide all the medicine and just I'm here. I love this work. I love being able to be this for people because I know a lot of people need it. So you can go to my website for that. You can also follow me on Instagram at Ananzi_Labyrinth, where you can look at my posts, you look at my reels. If you just want to shoot me a DM or if you have questions you want to ask me there, you can. Those are two primary ways you can find out more about what I do. And I'm here. You can hit me up, shoot me a DM, shoot me an email. All the means of communication, all are Ananzi's Labyrinth, Ananzi's Labyrinth at Gmail. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you guys.
Perfect. Listen, thank you, brother. I appreciate you just taking the time just to be in conversation, to be in energy, and just, to vibe out in this conversation. Thank you.
No problem. I appreciate you too, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, most definitely.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. It really has. Thank you. This is the highlight of my day. For real.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's been the same here. I was excited to sit down and talk. And yeah, I'm just glad we got a chance to do this. So thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Mindful Rebel podcast. Take a moment to go down into the show notes and follow my guests on all their platforms or check out their website because I know you enjoyed the nuggets of wisdom they shared with you in this episode. While you're in the show notes, take a moment and go to my website. That's SeanJMoore.com to stay up to date on any upcoming offerings I have to share. And then also subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to catch the next episode of the podcast. Thank you so much. And until next time, move into the rest of your day with a greater sense of peace, clarity, and freedom.